Hi, my name's Evan, and I'm going to be giving you a tour of my service truck. It's a 2011 Ford F-550. It's used, but new to me. She's doing the job right now. There's certain things you can cheap out on and certain things you don't want to cheap out on, because if something breaks in the field for the money and the abuse I put them through, like, I don't know, you just can't really beat it. I have a bit of a story behind the welder. So what do you guys run your trucks on? Hopes and dreams? This cabinet here, right behind the driver's door, this is where I put all my tools that I use the most. Starting at the top, I have these nifty little socket trays. Actually, I haven't seen too many other guys use these trays, but they're available from Snap-on. I quite like them. But I can pick up the entire tray if I'm on a big job, and then just go and take it to wherever I'm working. And believe it or not, but the sockets actually stay on here remarkably well. Those came off of a Snap-on truck. They're fairly expensive, I guess, for an organizer. It was like 80 bucks at the time. That was like years ago, so now they're probably like 300, I don't know. I like them. Like this drawer is all SAE, all standard Imperial. Aside from my miscellaneous socket extensions. I'm not really a fan of how this is, but this is all the space I have, so that's the way it is. These cabinets aren't super high, so as you can see, I don't have very much space above my drawer packs. I would like to have some stuff organized differently, and you know, when you have the taller cabinets, you can put kits and stuff on a shelf up top, or like battery chargers or whatever, but this is what I got. This is what I'm working with, so make it work. Another socket drawer, all metric. A few little kits in here. Same kind of organization as the one above. This drawer, all my writing utensils, measuring equipment, level, knives, extra air fittings, batteries, calipers, picks, small screwdrivers, bigger screwdrivers. That's the first big master set of screwdrivers I've ever purchased myself. Usually I'm always buying this little kit, that little kit. This was a big master set. I was pretty happy with it. It came with pretty much every main bits you would use, your Torx, your slot, your Phillips, Robertson, long ones. They've been good, yeah. No, I like them. This drawer here is, I got files, scrapers. These are all my chisels, punches, and then all my electrical gear here. This stuff I use a lot. Multimeter. This thing is actually quite old. I should probably get a new one, but it still works. So different length test leads. A bunch of test leads here I've made up myself over the years. Lots of jumper wires. It all depends what you're doing. Like, I have little pigtails of wire with pins crimped on to plug into something and then jump power or get power where I need it to go, or to check for power. Actually, Load Pro, this little guy here, very handy tool. I know some of the other techs use them. Snap-on, this one's nice because it stays on. It's got a lock on the back here, so some of them you have to hold them, but this was pretty expensive. My wrench drawer. Some people might make fun of me because all my wrenches, they're not that expensive. These are all ratcheting wrenches. They're all Mastercraft. Came from Crappy Tire, but they're the 5 degree. They're all stamped gear wrench on the back. I got a full standard and metric set from Crappy Tire. It was 130 bucks at the time. You can't beat that. The value is awesome. And then, yeah, all my combination wrenches are also all Mastercraft. These are getting pretty old, pretty haggard. A lot of the jaws are spread apart, but again, for the money and the abuse I put them through, I don't know, you just can't really beat it. It'd be nice to spend the money and get the fancy wrenches, get the Snap-on stuff, but for just a standard set of Snap-on combination wrenches ranging in the same size, I'm probably 300 bucks. Whereas again, this set I got standard and metric, and that was probably 60 bucks. When you start crunching the numbers, it's hard to beat, but again, quality tools too. Like there's certain things you can cheap out on and certain things you don't want to cheap out on, because if something breaks in the field, like there's no store nearby, you can't just quickly, I mean, we're in the city today, but lots of the time you're in the bush and you can't just quickly go run and grab something. So my wrenches, I basically have doubles, triples of a lot of them. So if I do break something, I can still get by. In these roll-up bags here, these are all offset wrenches. These are, again, nothing fancy. These are all Sunex. They say right on them they're made in China, but I don't actually use offsets that much. I guess one day I dream of upgrading my tools to the nice fancy stuff. That gear wrench screwdriver set was probably one of the nicest things I've bought in a long time. As far as organization, I believe these are Blue Point wrench holders. They came off the Snap-on truck again. It's kind of a rubbery material, but it does hold the wrenches in really well. Actually, and on the back, there's holes. Actually, I made these holes because in previous service trucks that had bigger doors, I'd rivet them. I really like them. Not even kidding. Like these are like one of the best investments I've ever made. Like everybody would always ask me, because I'd have them stuck up on the door, and then they'd always ask me, do those always, like, do they stay up there? Do they ever fall down? I was like, no, they don't ever fall down. I think I've had a wrench fall out of it once when it was on the door, and I've been down some pretty rough roads. Very efficient when it comes to space. Unfortunately, I don't have them on these doors. I can't, because the door's not big enough and there's not enough room between the door and the drawers. But it works on a Brutus body. More wrenches. These are metric. Same kind of idea. Always gotta make sure you have your crow's feet, regular and flare nut crow's feet. You can never have too many tools. Plier drawer, pinch off pliers. These are handy. I really like these. These are a good idea. I used to use vice grips until I found out about these, and I was like, this is genius. They pinch stuff off, hence the name, pinch off plier. These little shoes on them here, which are blunt, like the edges all rounded off, so when you go and pinch off a hose, you're not gonna cut the hose or anything. If you gotta pull a radiator out, you can just get 2 of these. I've got a bigger set for larger hoses, and you just pinch off your upper or lower rad hose. You don't even dump your coolant, and then you'll have to drain the radiator obviously, but you can leave all the coolant in the engine. Nipex, I've got the Mac Daddy Nipex. Yeah, these are real handy when you got filters and stuff that don't want to come off. That's probably what I use them mostly for.
And you put them on with that, right?
I always use that, and then I snipe it when I'm putting the filters on just to make sure they're good and snug. It's job security for me. Only I have the big Nipex. What do we got on the bottom here? Air tools, most of them anyways. All the bigger stuff is in the cabinet behind. Here's a handy little tool that a lot of guys probably don't have. This is an engraver, and you guys are all like, what are you doing, like scribing your name in machines while you're working? Like, no, that's not what it's for. So if you like pull a control valve out of an excavator or anything that has a lot of hydraulic lines, rather than using like zip ties or something else to mark them, you just start numbering all the fittings. Like, yeah, you start at 1 and go up to, you know, however high you have to go, or go A, B, C, D, whatever. It's actually a lot more efficient, and then the mark that you engrave on the fitting is permanent. It's not coming off. That's a pretty good way for marking stuff. I do work on trucks from time to time, unfortunately, so I have these. I don't know how glad it is, but that's what they call it. It's glad hand. It's for air supply to a trailer. For like a truck and trailer, transport, semi, you know, 18-wheeler. Anyways, that's enough of that one. Just a quick update on my truck. Since we did the truck tour, I've made some modifications. Ta-da! Made these screwdriver racks here. Pretty simple, just some sheets of angle, drilled some holes, put some little rubber grommets so it doesn't scratch everything all up. Yeah, these screwdrivers, too long to fit in my drawers. Okay, back to the tour, guys. What I got in here? Zip ties, yep, lots of that. This one's kind of empty, actually. I just keep all my Schrader valves, some tape in there. Spare parts, a lot of John Deere stuff.
Does that mean anything?
Maybe to the consumer, but it means money to me. Aerosol, lube, spray, paint, never sees, ether, Loctite, off. You always gotta have some off with you when you're in the bush. This is just big air tools, torch, some power tools in here, big 1-inch gun. Excuse the cables. I have a 1224 booster pack in the back of my truck, so that's pretty handy. These are the jumper cables for it. It's got this little trigger here, so once you're all hooked up, there's no power at the end of the cables until you pull the trigger, so you can't electrocute yourself or anybody else. And it won't work either unless it's voltage sensing. So it has to be hooked up and sense 12 volts in order to click on. If you put it on a battery that's like stone dead, only 1 volt, and you go to pull that trigger, it won't work, which is kind of inconvenient, but it's how it's designed. I didn't put it in, it's just the way I got it. So yeah, up top here, I just got kits of random stuff. Here I got mostly all my welding rod right now. I'm still kind of organizing stuff, so I got random bolts and hose clamps and whatever. Carry lots of welding rod because I do quite a bit of welding. Bigger crow's feet kit. I've got up to 2-inch drill bits, some miscellaneous tap size, all my lifting hardware, Princess Auto Power Fist Special, only the best. I carry a heat gun, a digital tack, which actually comes in handy sometimes when you're got to measure like fan speeds or motor speeds. Pry bar, hammer, big wrench drawer. Always good to have a big crescent wrench. I mostly use this for bending stuff. This is something pretty much everybody should make. Probably wondering what it is. It looks just like a snipe. It can be used as a snipe if whatever you want to snipe fits in the end. Or it's got these 2 horseshoes welded on it, and it's actually, in case you're using an open wrench rather than double wrenching, you put this on and then now you've got a nice bar, a good handle that's not going to slip off. So that's kind of nice. What do we got in here? This is the crane cabinet. I got an auto crane, which has some advantages and disadvantages. One advantage that I really like about it is it has fully hydraulic extensions. Both of them are hydraulic. I don't have to go and unpin and pin my last extension like a lot of you guys, haha. But the disadvantage is it's 24 volts, so I got another battery in here, which is for the crane. I wouldn't want anything smaller than a 5,000 pound, because as soon as you start reaching for stuff, like your capacity for what you can lift drops way off. If I got to pull the swing drive out of here, like I'm reaching, you know, quite a ways out, you know, 10 feet or whatever, so I've already halved my lifting capacity. This crane has a 20 or 21 foot reach. Ideally, like, I don't know, in my mind, when it comes to a crane, bigger is better, but it also costs a lot more, so. But anyways, beggars can't be choosers. I was fortunate enough to find this truck used, so this is what we work with. But overall, I really like the crane. I haven't run into a scenario where it wouldn't lift something that I wanted to lift yet. The other cool thing that these cranes have is 360 rotation. So I can keep spinning in circles, whereas like a Cobra crane, they don't rotate 360. You can only go so far and then you've got to go back the other way. So sometimes you can get into a sticky spot where you're trying to like move something out or whatever. Whereas this crane, I can just keep going around and around. And then I've got this huge box here, which is full of relays to do the 24 volt system. I've got my waste oil here. This is just the pump, and then I've got a tank in the front of the doghouse. Really handy, love having that. This thing holds about like 200 liters of waste oil, so I can do some pretty big oil changes. Yeehaw! Cabinet heater in there. It's sitting behind the fire extinguisher, you can't see it. My fire extinguisher is in the cabinet because I did a little rearranging on my truck and it wouldn't fit in a bracket on the outside anymore, so it's in the cabinet. I'm ready to get stuck. Like, look at these bad boys here. Like, Man, I've never been stuck in this yet, but I'm ready. I got these 2 big meat hooks down here. Oh man, an excavator just really wants to pull on those, I know it. This is the doghouse. Again, the truck is still a work in progress. So I have a bit of a story behind the welder. Not this one actually. So when I bought this truck, I bought a welder at the same time. So I bought both of these things sight unseen. The welder was supposed to work, and anyways, the first one I bought turned out it didn't work. So then I was scouring trying to find a welder that did work. But I found this one, paid less for it than the first one that didn't work, so that was great. This is just a Miller Bobcat 250. It's a little smaller than I'd like to have, ideally, but it's done everything I need it to so far. I used to do lots of gouging, which I haven't really done any of lately. This welder's pretty small if you want to gouge with it. It'll only do like 3/16 rod. It does weld AC, so you could, I guess, I'm not sure if you can TIG AC with this one or not. Maybe you can, but anyways, it does AC welding current. You can also hook up a wire feeder, an external wire feeder to it. So I've got a Miller 12 VS at home as well. So I can hook that up, and if I got a big welding job, I can run wire feed instead. And then of course it's the generator, 10,000 watt generator. I've definitely powered my home a few times when the power went out. I don't know, Miller welder. It's got a big fuel tank, love that. I don't really have any complaints about it. My big ladder is sitting in the doghouse right now. I actually have some brackets lying on the floor of my shop that I got to mount up here, and then that ladder will hang up outside, but right now it sits there. You can see it's pretty full in here. Don't really have a lot of extra room. In the very front is the waste oil tank. Then behind that, there's 2 big 8D batteries, which are for the 1224 booster. On the side there, on the left side, you can kind of see the front of the booster module, I guess, itself. I always carry dunnage with me. Need to have dunnage for blocking up whatever, if it's shimming a jack up higher or blocking a machine after you take a wheel off or a track or whatever you're doing. Got myself a nice big oil catch tray. Made that out of the bottom of a big plastic drum. I just cut the bottom off. That's really nice to have. Carry lots of different funnels, various chains. All my welding cables and stuff are in the back here hanging around. I don't really like this doghouse. I don't like how it's set up with all these hooks, because it's just, everything's kind of just hanging there, taking up the space in your doghouse, and it's a pain in the to grab your cables out from there and then wind them out and do your welding, and you got to roll them up and then go back in and hang them up. It'd be nice to have reels. This service body isn't really big enough. I don't have the room to fit some reels on here, so I don't have them. Yeah, anyways, that's the doghouse. Oh, I've got, actually at the back here, this is a garbage can. It's just a 5-gallon pail. That's something I started doing from the beginning, because you always have garbage, you got to put it somewhere. So 5-gallon pail, garbage can. Actually, if you ever gotta answer the call of nature while you're not in the vicinity of a washroom, an air filter actually off of a big machine works really well as a can. It's, you know, it's got a comfortable seat there. It's all foam already, and you just right in the middle. Don't ask me how I know. So in here, all my rigging, again, it's kind of a mess because just lack of space. Straps come along sitting up there. I've got ratchet straps in here. I've got an assortment of fuel line, different sizes, carry with me. Jack, more dunnage, big pins for whatever, spacers, I don't know, whatever you need it for. It's good to have some big chunks of metal for beating on stuff or whatever. More kits of just whatever I can fit in. Machine screws, I've got a bunch of battery terminals, O-ring kits, kits of other tools. These are impact torques, taps and dies. These drawers I haven't had a chance to fill up yet, because actually I have nut and bolt bins on order, but they haven't come in. Steel shortage or whatever the excuses they have. So these are empty still. I'm still waiting for that stuff, but I made all these dividers, put them in the drawers. That's really handy. These are all my hydraulic fittings, caps and plugs, JIC, O-ring face. I don't have too much of anything else. I don't see a lot of like DIN or Komatsu fittings or what is it, BSP. Actually, I need to get some BSP yet, but various adapters, gauges. So on Brutus bodies, this cabinet here above the wheel well, it opens sideways, which I didn't mind either because Brutus has underneath their drawer stack, they have a little tray that comes out that can be used as like a workbench or another tray for storing tools. This one I actually don't mind having this one flip down because it's a nice little workbench. It's when you're in the field, you don't have a lot of space for or work tables or whatever. So it's nice to have more bench space. It's kind of handy. I did a diesel fuel delete on here. This truck now just runs on hopes and dreams. It's a lot cheaper, I find, than having to fill up at $2 a liter. That's for the def tank nozzle. It's actually just broken. It's kind of dangling in the wheel well there. We did a OEM fix. We got some baler wire here and just have it tied up so it keeps it out of the wheel. This truck is actually an ex-Finning truck. So at Finning, they have this cabinet. They waste all this space down below here with a generator. They put a generator in here and it's on this nice little tray, and you can, I don't know, when you want to use it, I guess you pull the tray out and have your generator run. So I've just kind of used it to put buckets of oil and other fluid that I need to carry with me. I don't really like it. This cabinet's set up stupid. These drawers, all my big wrenches are here. I know some of the other guys, they have that metal hose wrap and they stand up all their big wrenches in it. These drawers, unfortunately, are too shallow. I can't do that. So they're all just scattered in there, kind of a mess. I got some clamps in there too. And then my kit drawers, this is just O-rings, grease zerks, bolts, little screws, fuses, all the things you run into that you need. More just, I got my torches actually sitting in this drawer. Just more kits in here, really. This one's electrical, miscellaneous, wiring, connectors, battery terminals. And then there's this little space up here above the cabinets. I've got a bunch of stuff jammed, wire hoses and stuff. I'm not a big fan of the service body, but do what you gotta do. Torch cabinet. This, again, way too small. I have to use the small bottles, and I couldn't actually even fit a 48-inch bottle with the cap on. It would not stand up in that cabinet, so I cut the whole top of the cabinet out. It had this vent here already, but they just had holes drilled in the top of the cabinet, so I just cut a big hole so that I can have my bottles actually stand up in there. I don't know who designed this, but it's too small. And then I got this nifty little cabinet up here. Always kind of wait because there's stuff that's gonna fall out. Welding, grinding stuff, masks. I've got my oil Zorby pads, extra paper towel. This is the passenger side of the cockpit, in case you were wondering. This is where, you know, most of my food sits. Most of my garbage ends up on the floor. Little first aid kit behind the seat, gotta have that. It's pretty dusty. If any of you wanna clean it for me, that'd be nice. This is what makes it go. This is where all the hopes and dreams go here, buddy. I talk to her and she talks to me and we just cruise.
Any major issues since you got it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we got regen. So this is a 2011, so it has, this is the first year of the 6.7 diesel for Ford. And I noticed right away is like, this thing would get so hot going up the littlest of hills. Like it would see a hill and start to get hot. So what happened, a couple trips to Lytton and blew a heater hose line off once. I was getting some emissions codes. You guys know the drill. Did a tune on her in Tier 69, and now she flies. Runs way cooler too. It's crazy. It hardly even, my fan used to kick in all the time. After tuning it, like my fan basically never comes on. I've had it come on once since I tuned it. So like it just runs way cooler, way better. I get better fuel mileage now. So yeah, anyways, the emissions battle. This truck came from Alberta, so it has a positive air shutoff on it. Any vehicle going on an oil patch site where they have gas wells or potential of H2S gas, or I guess any kind of gas floating through the air towards your vehicle, you have to have a positive air shutoff, because on a diesel engine, you shut a diesel off by killing the fuel supply. But if you have another fuel supply of vapor going in the intake, it's basically like you can't shut it off anymore. So that's why we have a positive air shutoff. So it's just a valve and it'll snap closed on the intake. If say the engine was exposed to some kind of gas and the engine started to rev up and run away on its own, then we could flip the switch in the cab, it'd close that, and it should kill the engine. Yeah, and there's a bunch of conglomerate of aftermarket wiring under here. It's quite messy. I'm not a fan, but again, is what it is. It's got a VMAC, an underhood compressor. Another thing I'm not a fan of, but truck came with it. They put out lots of air, but you've got this great big engine here turning this tiny little compressor, and it just seems kind of pointless in my mind. It's a lot of money and fuel burn to run this tiny little compressor. I'd much rather have a engine driven unit on the back, and that way too, like these VMAC underhood compressors, they utilize the engine serpentine belt. So say something happens to your compressor or compressor clutch and it melts your belt off, like now your truck's immobile. You can't drive anywhere because you can't run your engine because you melted your compressor belt off. So that doesn't happen very often, but it's always been in my mind. Actually, I've had an issue with these compressors once on another truck, but other than that, they are pretty good. I might change a few things yet in the cabinets, or I don't really want to put a whole lot of extra money into this truck. I'd rather just kind of save and eventually order a new one and spec it the way I want. But that's my girl. She's doing the job right now. That's my truck. If you have any questions, let me know. This is what makes it go. This is where all the hopes and dreams go here.